like that, we just go live and say hey to everybody as we start going, and we'll start spamming some social media stuff and all those things. And I'm going to mute all those other channels too. Nice.
Crazy cold opening there.
We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. Well, welcome everybody to the show. Oh. And yeah, so here we are. Welcome everybody. Welcome to the show. Tonight, we are very excited. InstructLab and open source AI with JJ Agshar. JJ, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on. Super appreciate the conversations that we had leading up to this episode and all of the things. And so the way that the show goes, you're an old friend of the show. So you've been at Tech Talks and you've done stuff at VMworld, and we've been, and I've mic'd you up, and Damien has handed you stickers. So normally this is the part where I say, hey, this is V Brown Bag, welcome to the thing, but it feels very forced. So what I'm going to do is instead, I'm going to flip over and say, join the V Brown Bag community. We will be paying attention to the live stream on Twitter, on YouTube, on Twitch, on LinkedIn. We're everywhere. We are live streaming to the entire universe right now. And Andrew Brown is already in the live studio audience. Hello, Andrew Brown. How are you doing? How do I use ChatGPT to do my taxes? So Exam Pro is Andrew Brown, and he's one of our good friends of the show as well. Understood. So yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Oh no, I was going to say. I mean, how can I help?
Well, we will be paying attention to the socials. So Damien, Shala, Roger, and myself, we will be watching the responses and the questions, and not answering Andrew Brown's questions specifically. We will be specifically ignoring him. Nice. And he doesn't get any of the prizes. And we will be giving away a prize at the end of this. So for the folks that are on, for the folks that are paying attention, we are going to be giving away, what is it this time? $50 in AWS compute credits to the person. So we have like this little quiz responselet thing at the end. It'll be super fun. And then we'll give away some cash and prizes. Yay, team. Thanks. Roger, it's been a minute since we've seen you. Where have you been?
I've been I've been on PTO. I've been all over the place. So it's been a whirlwind tour for the last couple of weeks.
Our favorite AI cyber Sith security guy has been. We've been having a dearth of security questions because we've been missing you.
Well,
were you on PTO? Where'd you go?
Mexico.
Oh, how was it? How long were you gone?
That was gone for about a week and a half. So yeah, it was pretty nice.
Feels longer. Awesome. Okay. Well, why don't we get into it? I mean, there's going to be a lot here, and we're going to have a lot of questions. So I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to add that, and let's learn about IBM. I mean, let's learn about AI and open source and InstructLab. Well, I saw IBM. That's why I said that.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey. So, hey, everybody. So yeah, hi, I'm JJ. That's my contact info. I figured that'd be a good way to get it to everybody. Yes, I really do have the email address of awesome@ibm.com.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, well, it will absolutely get to me. So please never hesitate to reach out. So we're going to talk about InstructLab first, before we hop into the open source AI. And I'm going to start with InstructLab as a whole, and then if we take it, if we continue this conversation, and please ask questions. I have a nice overview of AI, because the first question that I usually ask at DevOps days or places where there's an open space about open source AI, I ask, who here can describe what a token is to me? Because if you can't tell me what a token is, okay, in a second, Chris, the power of InstructLab may go on your deaf ears. So tell me, what is a token?
A token is a discrete packet of information. It's not a whole, it can be a whole world, a whole word, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a whole word. When you tokenize like a string of a sentence, it chunks it up into data packets. I come from networking, so I don't want to say data packets because everybody's gonna be like, oh, is it token? No, but basically a data packet that the large language model then uses to parse the information for. I actually don't know what it does with the token. I just know what the definition of a token.
Exactly. So believe it or not, and you actually touched on one of the jokes I make in that question, is that we've overloaded this term with the token. Like we have a token ring, right, for networking. We have tokens that we go into skee-ball machines, just like the tongue-in-cheek comment there. And as a community or as a technologist, we've overloaded the term. And it's important to recognize that in order for you to understand the power of open source AI and the power of what's going on behind the scenes, the token is a way for you to communicate, and it can understand the natural language processing of what you're trying to communicate to and what is coming back and how much compute it's supposed to use, right? So it's not like putting tokens into a machine, but it's like it breaking it up, which is exactly what Chris was saying. But to understand that, there's usually a whole world of stuff you need to understand around that to be able to really grasp what's going on. Now, another nice little notice about this conversation and this kind of walkthrough I'm going to be doing. You'll only ever hear me say artificial intelligence this one time. I will only reference this as AI going forward because this is not intelligent. There is no intelligence here. We have overloaded that term also. And that's important to recognize because what is AI and what do we have right now? We have some of the best librarians and some of the best yes men you'll ever have in your life. That is what we are using as these things, right? They are cronies. They are literally trying to find the mathematical best answer to what you have just asked to it and give it back to you. And then also, it's a librarian where it has a certain amount of knowledge already inside of it. And occasionally it goes out to the library to find even more information for you, which is usually called a RAG, retrieval augmented generation, and pulls the book out of the library and looks it up for you too. Now, with that anchor thoughts in your mind, let's move into what InstructLab is. So what is it? It is an open source project that gives you the ability to train a model in an open source way, right? So we have there are multiple different models out there. Who all knows what Hugging Face is? We got one, we got two, we got three. Well, the best way to describe Hugging Face, if you don't know, it is the GitHub of the ML AI space. When you think of GitHub, you think of source code. When you think of AI and ML for data sets and models and et cetera, they don't go on GitHub. They usually go on Hugging Face. So keep that in mind. InstructLab's model agnostic open source AI project that facilitates contributions to large language models. This is taken directly from the website because I want to at least touch on what this is. This is the main mission statement of the project. What does that mean? It means you can take any model from Hugging Face and use InstructLab to train it or fine tune it, which is another term that you should know or learn about, where you can put your knowledge inside of the model that you're coming off of Hugging Face. Now, I work at a small startup called IBM. Oh, that's supposed to be a joke. Hopefully somebody giggled. There we go. And we have one model out there, or we have a bunch of models out there, but the one that we focus on is something called Granite, which is a foundational model. What does that mean? I'm going to take a very large tangent here and talk about IP law and patent law and copyright law. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to. I could if I was about to. But the short of it is, yeah, exactly. The short of it is, in this AI space, we have a lot of really hard unanswered questions, right? Where when you build something with AI, or you get it to write a sonnet for you, or for that matter, write a book for you, that is usually created from derived works, right? that you can kind of get out. Now, can you technically copyright that? Copyright that and be able to sell that work as a derivative work? Well, turns out if you start peeling back this onion and having this conversation, and if you are using one of the ones that are not the foundational models out there, there's one that starts with chat and ends with GPT. I didn't actually say it. I just said it started and ended. Just make sure I'm not pointing on that by any way. Those models, we will never know how they are trained. We do not know. They claim they might tell us one day, but they will never actually tell you what the base data set of how this model has been trained, which, by the way, I'll get into what that is in a minute, and how that works. This is really important because there's other ones out there that other large companies have put out there that they will not say. For instance, there's a pilot that is a that we don't know that they scraped all of GitHub and to get a bunch of source code out there. What about the licensing for GPL inside of it? What about the licensing that might be like, don't use this for evil stuff? And it's taking some of that code and putting that out, right? That's actually a really dangerous conversation because now all of a sudden attribution is no longer a thing, right? All of a sudden this AI is just taking it and just dumping this stuff out there. IBM has come up with the Granite and the Granite code model, which we can actually give you the paper and the design doc for the model that we will say our lawyers will back you up using this to do attribution correctly, to be able to use this in a regulated environment and know that there's no copyrighted material built inside of this thing. Now, that is a big deal when you start really thinking about it at the macro level of what this technology is starting to do. No longer is it you going to ask it to write your essay on, war and peace or whatever. Now, when you start looking at it from a business standpoint and you're trying to write code or trying to write a document that might be going out to the public, you actually have to think about these things. And I know I'm harping on this, but it's really important to recognize that these base models, we don't have a good answer about this. And now, as you keep going down this path, if you go get your beverage of choice and go stare at a tree, start thinking of patent law. Patent laws can be just completely negated by AIs. They can start making patents for everything and anything, right? Now, they can't patent, the AI cannot patent it. That has been pushed through the Supreme Court here in the US. But that's not true in other countries, right? That brings up so many weird situations when you think of it in an international way of things are done. And you start peeling away that onion and you realize that there's a level of paranoia you need to have with this. Now, out of all that scariness, the thing that InstructLab gives you and the way that we're trying to work with it in this space is real transparency. And this is the reason why I'm so passionate about this project, because I know for a fact AI is not going is going to be we're going to be using it for the rest of our lives, especially with my gray beard and how old I am. It'll be around for the rest of my life at least, right? It's supposed to be a joke. But for my kids, right? We need accountability. We need visibility into these AI models that are being created. And what is InstructLab but open source AI? I said a lot there. Any questions so far?
Not a question so much as a comment. So we recently had Ayodele Odubela come on, and she is an AI ethicist who's currently writing some of the policy down in DC. And if you have like lawyer-backed guarantees that the attributions in your LLMs are like not taken from let's call it plagiarized sources, that's huge. That's actually a really big deal from a culpability perspective for somebody that's like trying to create something new.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say this with tongue in cheek, but it's true. What is IBM very famous for? But maybe our lawyers. And if you have the IBM lawyers behind you, that's a big deal, right?
Well, a lot of the stuff you mentioned too kind of goes into that whole responsible AI element as well, right? Making sure you're using it for the right purpose, and then of course, are you able to use it at all for the purpose intended? right? As far as the output is concerned.
So I'd be remiss not to bring this up. And this is the actual paper. I put it in the chat. Oh, I guess it didn't work. Oh. I tried to put it in the chat. But this is the actual paper on how the Granite models are designed and created. As you can see, it's on the internet where you can see exactly what's inside of it, where we pulled all the actual data from and actually did the training. Now, you're probably like, wait, why are you giving away the secret sauce? Well, that's actually one of the tricks about AI. To actually be able to train a model from the ground up from an initial foundational model, you need a lot of computers. You need a lot of computers. The layman out there, frankly, you can't afford it. It's just that simple. Like, as you can see here, this is racks upon racks upon racks of computers to do a foundational model from just building there's more math here and stuff that I don't fully grasp, and I'm not going to try to lie and go through it all, but take a moment and look through that.
JJ, you can't post links in there. That's like a thing from StreamYard. But if you DM me that link, okay. I can post it.
Perfect. All right, I will get that to you momentarily.
Awesome.
Now, okay, so you have all this data. You're looking at these foundational models. I've completely taken this off the tangent and going all over the place, and I apologize for that. I'm very passionate about the subject. But how is this open source, right? Like, okay, cool, JJ, you just told me you can get a bunch of source code that I'll never be able to use myself. How do I actually do the thing? Well, when you take a foundational model that we've given out to the world, like Granite or Granite Code, you can put that into InstructLab. With InstructLab, you can fine tune it in a very easy way by enabling it through the open source process that we normally have. So one of the problems is that the contributions to LLMs in general is not possible directly. One of the challenges of Hugging Face specifically is if you go out there and look at Hugging Face and all the different models, you might find an open source base model there, right? And then you can't contribute back to that model. Somebody will just fork it and then add their stuff on top of it and push that up. Well, what does that mean? Well, you now have no way of knowing how that model is progressed, right? Like, there's no traceability whatsoever. That's something else InstructLab brings to the table, is that we have a taxonomy, which I'll get to in a minute, where you can actually see through normal YAML. Yes, we're going to be writing more YAML. That was a Kubernetes joke. Where you're going to be writing more YAML to be able to create a way for you to track back how the model has been fine-tuned over time, which is pretty dang cool. So another challenge is that the ability to add things to foundational models has been firewalled off by PhDs and data scientists for a really long time, right? Like, you have to play with Jupyter notebooks to talk to PyTorch or TensorFlow, and all of a sudden you know what a tensor is, and you all of a sudden you find out you're basically learning calculus all over again. Well, that's not great for society, right? Like, you shouldn't have that you should not have to be this tall to be able to put your knowledge as a professional into a model so it can learn from what you already know. What does this mean? The InstructLab project is trying to build a way for we can get the normies of the world, i.e. the doctors of the world, the MIT professors of the world of mechanical engineering, to be able to just write simple questions and answers and have a base document that it works off of. And then the InstructLab project will be able to extrapolate from that and be able to train the Granite model to know even more things. Does that make sense? It's the ability to gain a corpus of knowledge that comes from the experts of the world, and we're trying to remove the barriers to entry. And we'll get deeper into that in a moment. One of the largest problems, another huge problem that we have, is with no direct communication or governance between all these different models. We've all centralized around Hugging Face as a place to distribute it. But get yourself a beverage of choice and play around on Hugging Face looking for an open source model that you think would be cool, and then try to put a PR back into it. It's not possible. It's just not. And that's not good, right? Like there's no, like it's cool to take from the upstream, but part of the portion of open source is to be able to give it back to make the change and make it better for everybody. But if you can't push it back upstream, that means only your version has that fix. So somebody would have to fork your version, but that people are forking the original version. They don't have that fix. I mean, it's the whole open source narrative, right? As a whole. So let's actually take a little bit of a look at InstructLab, and hopefully, if I got all this planned out correctly, I'm going to be able to actually get it running on my Mac as we do it from the ground up. And also, who knows what a Steam Deck is? Raise your hand.
The gaming platform?
A gaming platform. I can get InstructLab working on a Steam Deck.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. So if let's get it working on my laptop first, but I will show you getting at least inference into the open source models that we have, which is the Granite model via Steam Deck, and I'll do it live in front of everybody.
Oh,
So-
Doyle's gonna be so mad he missed this. He just got his new Steam Deck, and he's into this.
There you go. So
I'm
first thing
texting
first,
right now.
first thing first, I do before I get completely into to bring up the terminal and all that stuff, I do want to say I am very privileged here. The Mac that I'm going to be running on is a pretty beefy Mac, right? It's an M3 Max, 64 gigs, right? So it's a big one. One of the challenges you're going to have as if you do step into this world is that you do need real compute for this, right? And also you're going to need real GPUs. Believe it or not, it turns out the Steam Deck I'm going to be doing with the CPU. That's here nor there. But the idea is if you want to do real training and walk through the process, you need real GPUs to do it. And the way the shared memory is done with Apple Metal, which is the shares it between the RAM and the GPU, or the main RAM is shared between the CPU and the GPU. You can actually get really far in this space. But again, I understand it's expensive, but bear with me and we'll keep going. Okay, first thing first, I'd be remiss if I did not show the main website, InstructLab.ai. There's a lot of really interesting things inside of it. There is a paper on this one. This is not the Granite paper. This is the actual project paper about it. If you want to read academic papers, which put me to sleep personally, you're more than welcome to read it. It's a very interesting kind of concept, and we've built a real project out of this very quickly, which is really well worth it. We have a Slack channel or Slack team. We have an open space or open a public community channel. We have a public meetings. You're more welcome to join. So I want to make sure everyone recognizes that. The majority of the time when you spend, oh, by the way, if you scroll through this, it's a really pretty marketing page. I mean, don't get me wrong, somebody spent a lot of time on this, but there's no real useful information here. What's actually really useful is the GitHub page, right? So go to github.com/InstructLab, and there's a lot of words here, right? But what is it, and how it gets going is important to recognize.
I don't even
also-
recognize GitHub in white screen mode. You're a monster.
Yeah. Well, what can I say?
You like to be blinded at night.
Yeah. Well, I try not to go too late at night nowadays. It's one of those things. I tell myself, got to turn off, otherwise,
Gotcha.
Also, I do want to offer this. This is a workshop that we're being built, and we're building to kind of tell the story of Granite really quickly. I'm going to be taking little bits and pieces from this workshop, and it is live, like real time, so it might be updated, might change, but a lot of the work that I'm about to do is actually in this workshop. So if you do want to learn, see what I've done and walk through it, please go to this. It's called Open Source AI Workshop on ibm.github.io. So keep that in mind. Okay, I think that's enough prefaces. Let's actually have some fun, right? So first thing first, I'm going to bring this one over here and bring this one over here. And I need to make this significantly bigger. Okay. Now, so there's multiple portions of this, and what I'm going to do first is as you can see, I've got a bunch of stuff set up already inside of this. I am going to do this from the ground up. Do we all know what a virtual environment is inside of Python? Yes. Okay. Cool. So everything is done. Everything is done through a virtual environment. The InstructLab project is completely and utterly inside of Python. So you will become a Python expert before you realize it. That's supposed to be a joke. Playing around with this stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and just go into my temp directory here, and I'm going to create another one called make dir InstructLab stream. Sure, let's call it that. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Because everyone's watching me, I can't type. There we go. InstructLab stream. So nothing's in here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a Python 3 virtual environment. You want to use Python 3.11 or above just to kind of work with this. It's just one of those things. You can technically use 10 if you want, but for the best experience, you want to use 3.11. Oh, I just saw that question. You can absolutely run this on a Mac M1, M2. An M3 is ideal. Otherwise, the time that it takes to do the training will grow from 15 minutes with an M3. M2 takes about an hour. And then an M1, I've seen anywhere from 3 hours, or no, an hour and a half to 3 hours of the actual
Oh,
training.
wow.
So there's an action. It's kind of a not an exponential graph, but it's hard, and that's the one reason why the CPUs and training of fine tuning these models is so hard, and you need real GPUs to do this. I've learned more about GPUs than I ever thought I'd even know, and I'm not a computer gamer. I tried to be one when I was growing up. I got lost. The irony is I just came right back to learning more about NVIDIA than I ever wanted to know. So that was supposed to be a joke. But anyway, let's keep going. So first thing first is we have our new directory. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do, oops, that's not the right, that is not actually my screen. Here we go. I'm going to do source vnv bin activate pip install InstructLab. That is literally it. I mean, luckily I have most of it cached already, but that's cool, right? So I'm just did a pip install InstructLab. I'm pulling down all the stuff. Right now it's 0.17.1. We're about to release 0.18 very, very soon. You'll probably want to reach out to me when 18 gets released because there's some major changes inside of it. But we're going to just talk about 17 right now. All right. So there we go.
We actually, for the longtime viewers that are watching this, we actually did almost a year of Python. So hopefully
Nice.
they're actually running through this along with us.
Perfect. And let it finish. Should only take a second here. There we go. And then again, that's not my screen. I keep clicking on my main screen in front of me, trying to go into the window inside of Chrome. And I'm just like, that's not right.
That's not working.
There we go. So then I'll do iLab here. And we should see, if I got this right, iLab installed. Maybe. I'll make iLab. There we go. Cool. So there are multiple different portions, and I'll talk about the taxonomy here in a second. But the first thing I want to do is looking at my notes here, I want to do iLab config init. So what is this? So what does this do? This sets up a YAML file because we all still live inside of YAML, right? Again, a joke. Well, we're going to pull down the taxonomy. What is the taxonomy? And I will show you this in just a second. This is the repo that it will give you the knowledge that you can add to the base model, right? So we have there's a whole study of how data is stored and cataloged. That's literally what a librarian does. What is that taxonomy? It's a way to store and catalog data inside of it. So we have a open source project. This is actually the core responsibility I have on the InstructLab project, is actually running the taxonomy team. So we have a bunch of information on how to do these Q&As, right? Where we have, this is the version 3 that I was talking about, which is going to be at 18. We're going to be doing 17 right now, where you have a context window and then you give it some questions and answers. Back to that teaching thing I was talking about earlier, where you have a model that creates a bunch of synthetic data. The Q&As give it a model and gives it to a model and asks it to make 1,000 questions out of these 5 questions or 15 questions that you seed it with. How many times have you asked the model to create you 15 tweets about, open source and how awesome it is, or how awesome Kubernetes is, and you throw it into your little, tweet deck system or whatever to do that for you? Or maybe how Chris probably did the socials to get out everyone to know about this stream, was probably he used an AI system to create a bunch of social toasts or whatever to it.
I am offended at the implication of that. I did that with the sweat off my brow and hard work.
Yeah, it's the same principle, right? It's the same principle. Like we all do it, and what better thing to do than get a bunch of questions and answers built off of it that comes to a actual document here from Wikipedia, because right now we're trying to be serious about copyright laws. So we go to Wikipedia and the public domain information, where you can build off of all this stuff. Hopefully that makes sense. So I pulled it down. Here's that. Here's the taxonomy, which is nice. And I just lost my notes. Give me 2 seconds here. What I will do is I will pull down the Granite model here, which will be this right here. I do iLab download. I go out to this repository is on Hugging Face. So while that's pulling that down, I will bring it up.
So when you say pulling down the model, you're pulling down the Granite 7B LLM to run locally. Yeah, is that what you're doing?
Yes, I'm pulling down this is quantized, and I won't go into quantization quite yet. But the 4-bit quantized version of the InstructLab 7B directly from Hugging Face. If you've never seen Hugging Face, here's Hugging Face in front of it. And this is the model that we kind of want people to play around with, because it is, again, the foundational model that we use. There is an IBM version of it. This is the InstructLab version, which is the open source project. There is an IBM Granite version. There's also a Coder version. There's multiple different ones, but this is the one we're going to play with today. If you've never seen it before, like I was talking about earlier with all the different models, as you can see here, there's 816,000 models on this thing, which you have no way of knowing what's good and what's bad here. So that brings in a whole other conversation about authenticity and the ability to vet and make sure that models are good. So hopefully, like with all good open source people, do your homework, right? Like know where you're bringing stuff in from. Obviously, Meta and Google are all out here too. So there's that level of validation. But when you start getting deeper into this space, you need to be very well aware of these things. All right. So as this goes, and there we go. I brought it down, which is nice. So what have I done? I've just pulled down an open source model, right? Like that's not crazy. That's whatever. But what I'm doing here is I'm serving it now, right? So as you can see, oh, I already have something running. That's a problem. I think I have it. I think it's a llama. It's a problem here. Show me some love. No. All right, give me a second here. I should have done this ahead of time. You know what? Let's just keep going, and I'll do it on the Steam Deck here in a second. So temp InstructLab stream. So, oops. What? Oh, source. What am I doing? CD. There we go. Source. No. BNB bin activate. Okay, here we go. So normally, this is where, you know what? I'm just going to do this. I'm going to go ahead and cheat here a little bit. Give me 2 seconds. Here is that Steam Deck. And I had already set it up on here. So if you didn't know, Steam Deck is just an Arch box. It's an Arch x86, which is always fun. So if I come over here to CD source, local, Python, InstructLab, here is a config.yaml. That's the same thing, right? You can see this is the exact same one that we had earlier. I don't think I actually showed it, but trust me, it's the same one. What I'll do is I will take the exact same command here, over here. And again, I apologize. I wish I was a little bit more. I was trying to save this to the end, but whatever. So we'll go here and then local or source, local, Python, InstructLab, and then source, VNV, bin, activate, and then iLab, model chat. So what does this do? This talks to the local model that I'm hosting right above us, and we're talking to the Granite model, right? Like again, I'm just showing you how you would normally do this in with OLLAMA or anything like that. But I'm showing you the workflow that exists with InstructLab here. And one of my a good friend of mine, Paul Chevkovsky, he always tests the models by saying, "Who is Batman?" Right? It's a good kind of at least something to start with here. Now, I want you to notice something very quickly. First of all, it's relatively slow. Well, I mean, it's on a Steam Deck. Come on, man.
Yeah.
But it's important to recognize. See how these words are coming out? That's because back to the yes man or crony idea, right? It is looking how close it can to the next word, and it finds the next word to be as close to 100% of what you're trying to look for. So when you give it a context window of questions, it looks at all those, or context window of all this information, which will be what is inside of this, and it starts walking through what has been asked through the system prompt and the user prompt, and tries to get closer and closer to what the answer is. I just asked who is Batman, but if I asked more to it, more questions to it, it'll take that who is Batman, tack it on to the what it's already saw and what I found, and try to work more and more to the answer that it's looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Is that what's the phrase for that? Context awareness or threaded context? I forget the name for it.
That's close enough. I don't know off the top of my head myself, but it's context awareness is a good accurate, and that's one reason why this. Where'd it go? I just lost it. Oh, come on. This is why this right here is so important now. Why we have these context windows inside these seed examples, right? One of the challenges we saw with InstructLab with 17 and down is that the accuracy of the questions we were trying to get the synthetic data generation to work were, I'm not going to pull any punches, about 20% accuracy, which is not great, right? It's really not. So what we did is that we've decided that now we're going to, just like you were doing and back in high school, if you were lucky like me and have a crippling learning disability for my SATs, I actually got a little thing that tells me it's in this paragraph. The answer you're looking for is in this paragraph. It's true. It's an actual thing. And this is what we're doing with the models now, is that we give it the context of the paragraph of what it's looking for, and then you build some questions out of that paragraph, or 250 words-ish, right? And then you ask it some questions in that space. So when it starts looking at that context window, it sees the questions that it's being asked for in there. It takes it and extrapolates it to the rest of the document, which is usually much larger, hopefully, where it can extrapolate more and more questions. So then it teaches the student model more stuff around it. So it knows that what is the Phoenix constellation, right? Is a minor constellation in the southern sky. Well, now that it knows, oh, I need to ask questions around what this thing is. So it goes through the rest of the document looking at, okay, what is a star? I don't know, whatever has the document, right? Like it extrapolates and builds off of that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it totally does.
I saw a question pop up real fast. So sorry, I get put on a tangent. There we go.
Yeah, the question is, does Ollama have overlap with InstructLab so I could just use iLab instead for your local LLM workflows?
That's a great question. So there's a strong intersection between Ollama and iLab. You need to look for, so we are actually working directly with Ollama as we speak to try to bring the projects closer together, because we realize that, I'm not going to pull any punches, Ollama's workflow is hella great, right? It's really good. It's just like we used to do with containers, with Docker files or container files, and you now have a model file that has the exact same process to be able to do high level fine tuning of a model, which is pretty cool, right? Like that's legitimately cool. Why not also like have iLab do the same thing, or for that matter, as you can see up on my screen here, or as you could have a second ago. I mean, hell, I even use Ollama, right? Because it's just it works so much better. So this is very real-time information, and we are working towards trying to find a better, a meeting point between Ollama and InstructLab. We have some really good contacts there, and we are working diligently to make it better. If you go through the workshop, the first workshop actually uses Ollama and VS Code to teach you how to build your own local copilot using Granite Code, something called continue.dev and Ollama. So you'll be able to actually get the copilot-esque kind of experience, but having everything on your local laptop. And also, not giving it to the thing up in the sky of your source code, which is usually not something you want to do. I mean, unless you do, then I'm probably talking to the wrong people. I don't know. Anyway. Okay. So now all of that, what does that mean? Again, I cheated because I went immediately to my Steam Deck, because I wasn't going to sit here and try to debug why 48,000 was messed up. But I do want to actually show you, after you've seen the Steam Deck, that was supposed to be the what is it called? Cherry on all this. I do want to actually show you a little bit of training here. So if I come back to an instance I know is running, give me a second here. Give me 2 seconds to think. I'm sorry.
Take your time.
Okay. There we go. That's the reason why. Okay. That was the version that was running. Okay. So if I come here and do in iLab taxonomy, I can't spell taxon. Oh, diff. Do I have one in here? I don't know if I do. Okay. So if I go into knowledge, taxonomy, give me 2 seconds here. I'm going to bring up some notes. Training. I need to, of course, it's not those notes. Sorry. Oh, come on. Granite. Nope. Granite training. So I'm going to go ahead and wget down this YAML file right here. So I'm going to the taxonomy tree, and I'm going to go into knowledge, and I'm going to go into Um, find grep instruct. Good. Computers. And then mkdir InstructLab. And then I'm going to go ahead and wget down this YAML. What is this YAML? This is taken directly from the Red Hat team where they wrote this. Again, this is 17, so there's a little less data in here. But this has a bunch of Q&As with about InstructLab specifically, right? So if I'll spin up the Granite model again and ask about InstructLab, and you'll notice it tells you it's a CMS system, a content management system made out of Europe for or not LMS, language management system. When we give it this InstructLab Q&A file, and then you ask it, what is InstructLab for AI? After we do the training, which should only take a handful of minutes because I'm on this Mac M3, it'll actually know what it is, which is pretty cool. So after taking this, I'm going to do the synthetic data generation, the thing I was telling you about a minute ago about creating all the different questions.
Mhm.
If you look at the config here, there is going to be 100 questions built out of this using the Merlinite model here. What is the Merlinite model? It is a quantized model from Mistral AI that is also open source, which is nice. And it's more designed to be, it's not designed to be a foundational model. It's designed to be a larger knowledge model. That brings in a lot of really interesting philosophical questions of how models should be done. I live in the world of microservices, and I like how microservices made my life easier through containers. Yes, when something broke, it was a murder mystery because I had to walk through to figure out what it was supposed to be a joke, to be able to figure out what went wrong. But it was easier to iterate on microservices, right? When things changed or when you need to do it. Same thing with models. It's much easier to do a training for a small model instead of a big model, right? Same with a massive Java app. You're going to spend a lot more time trying to figure out what's going on. And that's the kind of philosophy here. Hopefully that makes some sense. iLab, data generate. So what does this do? This takes the Merlinite model and then takes, actually before I do that, just to prove to everyone that it's there. As you can see here, it's like, hey, this is new. And the taxonomy is valid. So now what it does is it goes off and reads this again and then takes it and then builds a bunch of synthetic data off of it, which I'll show you in a second, which is a bunch of JSON. I hope you like reading JSON because that's what it is. So it only takes a couple. Go ahead. Yeah.
Quick question while this is doing its thing. Andrew asked, so what are we performing? Is this supervised fine-tuning, SFT? He's actually got a number of questions here based around SFT. Based on the language used on the InstructLab's GitHub, we are retraining, which is not the same as SFT?
So from what I understand, this is at the limit of my knowledge, so I could be wrong here. What we are doing is we're taking the foundational model of Granite and we are giving it new knowledge built off of the synthetic data. The analogy we use is a teacher-student model, where the teacher needs to have more than 5 questions, right, to be able to teach something, right? It can't work with 5 questions. It needs more than that. So what it does is it creates 100 questions, as it does. You can see it in front of me right now, right? And it builds a bunch of those. So when it teaches the tensors of the train of the Granite model, it injects those to be the statements it needs to know. And I don't fully understand it. That's a lot more math than I understand. But it basically slaps that fine tuning on top of it. So I don't want to say it's supervised fine tuning because it's not exactly the same from what I understand, but I could be wrong.
And the YAML file that you pulled down for us, the Q&A file, Anybody could make that. That's something that you could just generate from your own topic that you want to work with.
Yes, that's actually the best part about it. So the knowledge submission, and give me 2 seconds here, is right here. This is it right here.
Mhm.
And as you can see, it's a little bit easier to read because we don't have the context windows per section.
Yeah.
That's again the thing. But the most important part is this document here at the bottom, where it goes out and gets that document, and it needs to actually have a real SHA, and it needs to be on some type of version control system, so it can pull that information down, reads it, and then takes the Q&As and extrapolates more questions from it, right? And to be able to build out from there. And yes, it's just YAML and anybody can do it. So if you look at the taxonomy repo, excuse me, if you go into these pull requests here, we actually have these E2E ready ones, which are actual Q&As and from the Red Hat Summit that we've combined together to add new knowledge to the foundational one. For instance, the Indian Noble Laureates here, the answer and the questions.
So it has to the YAML file has to live in VCS. It has to have a hash that the model can verify. So somebody couldn't just create a completely bogus YAML file that makes it hallucinate or makes it lie to you or anything like that.
Correct. It needs some, and we also have, because it's open source, we have multiple people looking at these things to be put into the thing.
Gotcha.
One of the best stories of that, as this is going in the background, is if you saw at the very beginning, and I think it's because I'm also streaming here. The reason why it's going a little bit slower than normal. That's supposed to be like 6 minutes, and I don't know why it's going 25. But one of the best stories we had was when we first started this project, and we opened this up to Red Hatters and IBMers. If you saw at the beginning with the taxonomy where it talked about rhymes, one of the original questions we had, or one of the examples we had, were dad jokes, right? Because we thought, hey, why not get an LLM to give us good dad jokes? Everybody loves dad jokes, right?
Absolutely.
Like, makes sense, right? Well, we didn't realize within a week of us doing this, all these examples came in as dad jokes. And our taxonomy team, it has people from all over the world, including a bunch of my friends in Europe who are French. Why is that important? Well, we quickly realized that we were creating a unconscious bias to U.S.-centric dad jokes and U.S.-centric humor, because the French people on the team were like, JJ, what the hell does this mean? Like, it doesn't mean anything to me. And I'm like, oh, that's right. Like, because it's a different sense of humor. And then it's a perfect microcosm of what we did, right? Other AI systems out there, other companies, do they have that? I mean, it's just one example, but that level of rigor made us change the way we were doing all of our stuff now, right? Because we're like, no, we need voices from all different communities and cultures to make sure that we're doing this. And obviously after that, we realized we're taking too many dad jokes and poems and shit like that, right? So we got rid of it. But the idea is we had the right voices in the room to make sure we didn't have those unconscious bias. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Nice. I am so sorry. This was supposed to be a lot faster, and it's not going as fast as I was hoping for.
Well, this is what happens when you do things live. This is a V brown bag standard staple. This is what happens.
Yes, that is very frustrating. But training is going to take even longer, because training obviously is a lot more. But if you've seen inside of these questions, right, like it really does say these are generated questions, right? These are not from the Q&A file. So it actually reads through these things and builds out these types of things. I mean, how do I contribute to an open source project on GitHub? It tells you how to. It was like, oh, we need a question about that now. And there's a way that we have some automated systems inside of it with some Python modules that I'm blanking on at this exact moment in time, that will actually go through the synthetic data generation to make sure the questions are good, right? There's an actual like testing of the questions before going into it. And the idea is you get 95%, or okay, that's a lie. It's more like 70% of what you're looking for on your local laptop, right? With this process. But the idea is you want to push this back upstream into the InstructLab project, because when we do this as that end-to-end run with the main InstructLab model, where it goes into the main model, not the one that's quantized on your own laptop, you'll be adding new knowledge to that, and we'll be able to validate it to actually be going into that, where you'll have a much higher return rate on the questions that come back, right? Because there's much bigger hardware. The quantization happens differently on the upstream than it does on your laptop, because this is commodity hardware, right? Like you can only get so far with commodity hardware. We have really big machines inside the upstream that have been donated by IBM and Red Hat to be able to continue building the high quality that we want off of it. So does that make sense?
Yeah. So you've added the YAML file locally, and it's munging the data locally. If somebody doesn't want to contribute back upstream, does it happen anyway, or is I'm kind of confused about that part. Like
Yeah,
the upstream is contributing back somehow and making the answers better.
So yeah, there's two paths there. So
Okay.
I've only just shown you like what to do to like be a good citizen inside of the open source project, right? First of all, you don't need to put this back up into the upstream, right? First of all, like you could have your own knowledge repository with your own system, and you run this locally on your own hardware, right? Again, what is InstructLab but a workflow? And it's the beginning workflow of something called RHEL AI, which is going to be basically the RHEL version of building this, right? Where you can run this inside your own data center. You'll probably be running. There are a lot of companies out there that want this exact same workflow, but they can't use the chat, the thing that begins with chat and ends with GPT, for instance, because of international law, right? Like you have to have your data inside your own data center, or for that matter, inside your own borders, which is a real problem. Like you can't just give your data out to the Silicon Valley and not trust that they're going to steal stuff from you. Government agencies, for instance, cannot do that, right? That's a big deal for them. So they need a way to be able to make sure that it is in a controlled environment. And that's where RHEL AI comes into play, right? What is InstructLab? It's the Fedora version of RHEL AI, right? So if you put your head around that, that makes more sense. That's the reason why there's so many sharp edges to it, because what is Fedora but a sharp edged version of RHEL? If you're a developer and willing to play around in the stuff, it makes sense. But you wouldn't. Do you really want to put your business on Fedora? No. You should be putting your business on RHEL, because you shouldn't be worrying about infrastructure, right? Anyway, you get my point.
Yeah, totally.
That's the old ops guy in me talking right there. But anyway, so where am I going with this? The idea is that we eventually want you to be able to, like, I talk about the upstream and I talk about the Fedora-esque version of it, trying to get the greater good. But there's nothing stopping you from doing this inside your own data center in your own space. Like it just needs to be able to access the repository to be able to get that information, to be put into it, to fine tune it and build use the SGG process of building off of it. And then there's nothing stopping you from looking at the actual synthetic data generated output and editing it yourself, right? Like it's just text. So you can go through, your eyes will bleed because it's a bunch of JSON, but you can go through it and change things around if you need to, and then save it off and train it again and try to get a model that has a good return rate of the questions you look for. There's an iterative process to this. This is not just one shot, you're done. This is very iterative that you're gonna have to learn how to build off of. Also, with all good AI work in general, I mean, we all talked about prompt engineering about 6 months ago as like the next way of doing things. You're still going to need to do prompt engineering with this work. you still need to be able to coax out the questions you're looking for, and you need to be able to work with it to be able to get the information you're going for. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Not too long ago, my dad, who's approaching 80, called me and told me he met someone at the store or whatever who claimed to be a prompt engineer and made an outrageous amount of money. And I was like, if my dad knows about this, it's jumped the shark. It's over. Like,
So
what do
true.
you know about prompt engineering, Dad? You're a retired electrician. Like, come on now.
It's not Googling. It's not Googling.
Yeah. Yeah, he still like does like he doesn't double tap after a sentence when he texts, so like all of his sentences have like a period in between words, right? Like, and he's trying to tell me about some AI career, whatever.
Well, I do not envy the. I mean, the reason why a prompt engineer makes so much money is because nobody wants that job. If you actually looked at it, it's not good. It's not a fun job. It's not a fun job.
I mean, even just trying to get reasonable things out of a conversational LLM or GitHub Copilot, like tell me something that you didn't just make up, right? Like it's not yet at the point where you can say, go solve this ambiguous problem for me and it'll kick out bulletproof code, right? Like it just doesn't do that. You have to really know what you're talking about in order to get the answer you want, which is part of the problem.
That's actually great to bring up because of the little workshop that I implied at the very beginning. We actually make sure that the code that you ask to build it, because we use the example we tell you to do is Conway's Game of Life with Pygame inside of it, and it brings out the lion's share of the code for you, right? But it doesn't work. You actually have to debug trying to figure out what's broken. Like the main loop doesn't exist, right? The main function doesn't exist. Sometimes they throw tkinter in there, tkinter or whatever, and when you don't need it with Pygame. And then there's little things here and there that we try to highlight that it's like I back in the day I used to watch this TV channel called the History Channel that had some really cool things about history on it, like World War II and like the military and things. I hear it's not that anymore.
Nope.
It's supposed to be a joke.
It's not like that anymore at all.
Yeah. Well, one of the coolest parts what they had was like how the U.S. military does their sniper teams, right? And one of the conversations they use is, if you didn't know, a sniper team is actually two people. They've got a spotter and a shooter, or a spotter and the person who pulls the trigger. Turns out the spotter is the one who does all the actual work. They're the ones who figure out the angle that needs to go, the distance that needs to go, does all the math inside of it. And then the shooter, all they do is click a couple of things and then pull the trigger. If you put your paradigm on, if you anchor your thought around that, all of a sudden you realize that what is Copilot, or what is Granite Coder in this case? It's the machine that's just pulling the trigger for you. It gives you all this information, but you still have to sit there and walk through the code that comes out. You have to think about what the code is actually doing. So you don't have to think about how to write a for loop anymore, right? Like I need to write a for loop that loops 1,000 times. I mean, okay, for underscore in range, 1,000, right? But the point being is, like, if I need to do more, like I don't have to think about that. I can just write out the logic or the conversation that I want, and then I can walk out like the pseudocode, if you will, of that stuff, and then go back and do it. And there's a value prop to that, where it's less cognitive overhead for you to understand things, but it's not taking it whole hog and running with it, right? Because you still need to understand how this all stuff comes together. Does that make sense?
It does. It does indeed.
Yeah.
So how long does this process typically take that's currently at just under 70%?
So if I wasn't streaming right now, this should have been done in less than 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
For whatever reason, let me not make a liar out of myself here. Activity monitor. It's not great.
And this is on the M3?
It's on the M3. Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, I'm using 50 gigs of my memory doing this stuff. So there's a bunch of stuff going on. But
I actually have the exact same laptop that you have. We should have fired them off at the same time to see what happened.
oh, a nice little race.
Yeah.
I like it. I can tell you normally doesn't it I wouldn't have suggested this if I thought it would be shorter, but it's not.
No, it's fine.
But the train will take even longer. But the idea is when you do train on a Mac M1 or M2, if you do walk through this process and get to that point, I strongly suggest either doing it overnight or something like that and just kind of letting it run, because it's just going to be, you're not going to want to do anything else on the machine. But again, this is because it's commodity hardware, right? Like this is consumer grade hardware, not designed to do a lot of this, but we're at least showing you can work through the process.
And you said that there was a lab walkthrough on the InstructLab AI website.
There's multiple different ones, and right now the one I'm trying to get more people to look at is the little the workshop that we're putting together. And I will send this to you momentarily, Chris.
Yeah. Shoot me the link, and I'll send it to our viewers.
All right, I need to find you over here.
So, have you built this in IBM Cloud?
Multiple times, actually.
How fast is it there?
Was that a joke, Damien? Was that a joke?
No. I'm trying to serve softballs here, man.
So the IBM Cloud for this is, so as you saw earlier with the Steam Deck, most of the machines out there, unless you spend a lot of money on GPUs in the clouds, you usually do inference through the CPU, and you don't use the NVIDIA coder drivers or the ROCm drivers to talk to the AMD processors. Where you'll see a significantly higher increase in usage. You know what is probably, that could be it. Maybe because of the version maybe I'm not talking to Apple Metal here. That could actually be the reason why this is taking so long. Oh, see, we're doing some live debugging right now. Hang on. Ooh. This could actually have been it. See, Damien, you might have got me over the finish line here. Hang on. Give me a second.
Well, I was just wondering if we were going to have one of those 12-hour shows we were joking about before we started.
Yeah, so I think I might have actually done this wrong.
Everybody was so we have a little back channel chat, and everybody was throwing me under the bus. They're like, "This is probably Chris's fault." I was like, "Yeah, that is highly accurate."
You got to go and start trouble, Chris.
Just me starting shit everywhere.
Let's see if that actually works.
Meanwhile, I'm sharing how to help Andrew justify that new computer like I justified my new car.
I think a natural disaster is a decent justification.
Totally. Are there any Canadian natural disasters?
He said bears, so I'm like, let the bears get it.
Yeah.
Just go find a bear and whoops.
Yeah.
Cover his laptop in honey. See what happens.
Yeah. Or you left a ham on your laptop outside at night.
As one does. Yeah.
I mean, how else are you going to keep the ham warm?
That's how you smoke your delicious butt.
Yes.
Damien.
Yes, indeed. Yes. We were talking about me smoking a pork butt before the show.
Oh, so. Pork butt? Oh, never mind.
Butt. Yes. I was trying to, I'll just be quiet. This is what I get for not drinking.
All kinds of silliness happens on this show.
Yeah.
How is your new car, Shala?
So JJ, you kicked it off again?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I recompiled with what I thought was metal in there, and I don't know. If you look here now, it's at 7 minutes here, so that
Oh.
should be significantly faster now.
So what happened?
So I recompiled up here at the top. I recompiled OLLAMA, or sorry, not OLLAMA, LLM or Llama CCP with the Mac Metal, which is this right here, this version, MPS, which actually has the here. Let me show you. Hang on. CCP. So you'll quickly learn if you spend any time in the space, you'll be reading Llama CCP documentation a lot very quickly. And there is an option here for Apple Metal right here. Just make args and turn metal on, and that's the meta version of this that actually compiles it to talk to metal. I think what I was doing was the CPU version when I did InstructLab. So when I did the MLS version or MPS version, it turned that on. I believe that's exactly what I just did here. So,
Nice.
Okay, now it's taking 33 minutes. Well, okay. Anyway, I will go ahead and oops, I just lost my screen. I'll stop sharing that and be like, this is live. I should have been better prepared.
You gotta love them.
No,
Yeah.
he's perfectly fine.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So if you could get me that link, what I can do is I can put it in the show notes, or I can share it with everybody live right now.
I sent it
that
to you
way-
in I sent it to you in the in LinkedIn.
Where'd you send it? Oh, in
LinkedIn
LinkedIn.
level.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
I knew that would actually get to you. That's where I sent it to you.
There you are. All right. Okay, so here.
Andrew was demanding a restart.
Okay, so I just posted out the ibm.github.io open source AI workshop, which is what we've been going through. So now everybody at home can do it and go take a nap. And then come back to it, depending upon how beefy your machine is.
Yep.
Shala has like an amazing gaming box, so she'll be done in like 7 seconds.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm still really happy with that thing. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I need to get a new one now too. And I can use the excuse of I've got to do local data sources with the things. And yeah, I'll have to write down my excuses. I'll use ChatGPT to help come up with my excuses.
No, use Granite. Use Granite.
I will use Granite to help me come up with my excuses. That's right.
There you go.
Awesome. Cool. Well, let's see who do we have in the audience? There's a lot of Andrew, and I'm not giving Andrew the prize. Alejandro Mena, congratulations. You have won the prize today. I will reach out to you because you're not Andrew. And I will make sure that you get the $50 AWS compute credit gift certificate. Congrats.
Yep. Go and do something fun with it.
Yeah. Andrew gets a participation award.
That's right. So Alejandro, DM me on well, actually here. If you at Mistwire, you can find me. You can either DM me on Twitter or you can DM me on YouTube, and we will make sure that you get your credits, because Andrew already gets hero credits, so he doesn't deserve anything else. Awesome. Well, JJ, thank you so much for coming on. Folks, get out there and play with this model. Bring it down. I'm gonna actually play with the workshop tomorrow, and then I'm gonna ping you with any questions that I have.
Please, PR is accepted, and if something doesn't make sense, I mean, I'm going to be doing this for the next 6 months. y'all were my first real public experience or
Oh,
exposure to
awesome.
it. So thank
Nice.
you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, folks, everybody have a wonderful rest of the evening, and we will see you again next week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Later.